I'm currently in a city park in Australia trying to take photos of different bird species. Maybe you can see in the background some white dots. There's different egret species in this tree behind me, and I definitely want to take some flight shots later on and also give you some tips about that. However, at the moment the light is still a bit too strong for my taste. It's an overcast day, but you can somehow still see a bit the shadow, and it just means that the top of the wings and the top of the head of the herons or egrets is much brighter. And I feel like if I stay somewhere in a part below trees, or I focus on animals that are not whitish, it's a bit easier. So I want to start with some songbirds that I saw walking around here. And the nice thing about the bird photography in city parks or close to cities is that most of the time animals are quite used to people, so they're not so skittish. But there is also some other challenges. It's sometimes not so easy to kind of hide the human-made elements, like some barriers, some poles, some trash cans. Just before I was taking some what I thought would be nice pictures, but in the end I had a road that was basically going horizontally through the whole image and give a rather unpleasant background. I know that for many of you city parks are quite easily accessible, and that's why I wanted to give you some tips about the photography. And a big thanks to Jan Wegener, who told me about this place, because he knew we were driving by and told me that I should check it out, mainly because of this big heron colony that I will focus on a bit later. The first bird that I could already photograph was a wagtail that was walking around here, making some small jumps and looking for insects. And here was a very nice spot because, as I already mentioned before, it's a bit below a tree, so the light distribution is a bit more even. You don't have any problems with shadows and so on. It would still not work if it would be completely sunny in the background, because then the background would be way too bright, but like this it works quite fine. The next thing I like here is that it looks, let's say, semi-natural. So we have some wooden chips here and also some leaves. We have the roots of the tree and then this beautiful pinkish or violet flowers that are laying around, and I think they give a nice foreground if they're a bit blurry in the frame. To achieve this, however, you need to get really low. It depends a bit how I proceed here. For like a shorter period of time, I prefer to just use the tilt screen of my camera. So I hold my camera like this and take pictures like that. Sometimes I don't go completely to the ground. Sometimes I just hover a bit over the ground. Sometimes I actually put the camera down. This largely depends on the background and also where the bird exactly is standing. If it's rather on top of a hill or if it's rather a flat area. I then try to take a background that is not stealing the show of the animals and of these nice flowers, meaning in this case I don't want to have the green meadow, which is quite saturated in the background. I try to have either the pavement or a path where people walk that is a more neutral grayish. I just feel like this gives a much more pleasing background. And since below this tree I don't have a problem with the direction of the light, I can basically really focus on the background, and these small songbirds, they usually walk around quite erratically anyway. Sometimes if you have bigger birds like ducks or maybe some shorebirds, I feel like they're often a bit more directed into which way they walk, and then it definitely makes sense to go around them, wait for them and let them approach you rather than you getting closer to the bird. Unfortunately, I often also encounter situations where the foreground or wherever the animal stands on is not so nice. And one example are these geese here behind me. They're right on a path, it doesn't look good at all. And the background is also kind of divided between some water that is bluish, some water that is greenish. And it's hard to get a nice picture in my opinion. What I do here, since these are quite chilled, is I try to take some portraits. So just a headshot basically. In this case, I think 600 millimeters should be enough. I also have my 1.4 extender, but if you have a zoom lens, it's even better. For example, at 200 to 800. And since I have a bigger magnification ratio, this also means that my depth of field gets very shallow. So in these situations, I actually stop down a little bit and make sure that I'm really parallel to the head of the bird. In general, you don't need a very short shutter speed for these type of images. However, especially geese are often calling. Maybe you can hear it in the background actually right now. And then I find it also cool to have some more action shots when the beak is open. And for this, if you want these type of shots, you need a shorter shutter speed, for example, 1600 of a second. And then what I tend to use is a faster frame rate and actually enabling the pre-capture, because then I can just wait, and as soon as the bird starts calling, I take a burst of shots and I have these extra frames before I was actually fully pressing the shutter button. So I am now a bit walking around in the park, kind of exploring the area, looking if I can find some parrots or maybe some young ducks, because it's spring, so it's the season for duck chicks that are super cute. I think they're called ducklings in English, but anyway, super cute to photograph. And what I had just before, when I was walking around, I saw a duck, an adult one, but a duck taking off and flying past me, and I quickly snapped this picture here. And this made me realize that this would be a good point to talk about in this video, because I often experience this in tours or workshops that I'm leading, where people tell me, oh, that was a great moment, but I was too slow, I missed it. And don't get me wrong, I will not lie, this happens to me as well, but there are some tricks that I want to share with you of how you can improve your chances to still take the shot and get an amazing image in the end of the day. So the first one is obviously have your camera ready. Not in the backpack, but out, ready. And if I shoot with a super telephoto lens or any lens that has a lens foot for that matter, I prefer to keep this in my left hand, meaning that if I want to take pictures, I can quite quickly take the camera to my eye. Next thing, obviously the camera needs to be turned on basically all the time when I walk around and expect that there might be some action going on. It uses a bit more battery, that's true, but I just try to keep a second one in my pocket. But with some cameras like the R1 or the Nikon Z9 or any camera with a battery grip, battery life is not so much of an issue if you're just out for a few hours. The next issue is that for birds that are perched on a stick, I need completely different settings than for flying birds. So what I do here is using the custom shooting modes on my Canon cameras, and I programmed the MFN button here in front next to the shutter that I can easily switch with the press of one button between C1 and C3. C1 I configured more as a general all-around setting, and C3 for birds in flight or in general fast moving action. And this means that I have different settings for the frame rate, autofocus, maybe pre-capture, different autofocus, AI servo characteristics, and so on. It might also be worth in this case to put the ISO on automatic for this quick kind of change if you don't want to set everything perfectly before you start walking around, or if the light is changing quite frequently. With the professional Nikon cameras such as the Z8 and Z9, this is unfortunately a bit more complicated with the shooting banks and the custom shooting banks. What I recommend here is using the function, recall shooting function, I believe it's called in English. Basically, you can set a list of parameters there, like the type of autofocus, shutter speed, ISO, aperture, and so on, that you basically recall with the press of the button, including the frame rate, by the way. And then you can even determine if this should be active as long as you hold down the button, or just activate it with pressing the button once and deactivating again with pressing the button a second time. If you want to learn more about the autofocus system and how I set up my cameras, then please have a look at the autofocus guide for Canon cameras and for the Nikon autofocus guide that I wrote with my friend Nicolas Stettler for basically all newer Nikon Z cameras like the Z5 Mark II, Z6 Mark III, Z8 and Z9. Another technique that you can use to increase your chances to not miss the moment and get a sharp picture when action suddenly happens is to pre-focus. Of course, this is very vague, because if you take pictures of a heron or a wagtail in flight, the shooting distance will be quite different. But it already helps if the focus is neither on, let's say, 4 meters or on infinity, but a let's say reasonable distance, like 20 meters is maybe a good distance for all kinds of birds to start with if you want to have something flexible. So I usually just pre-focus on something that I think is around 20-25 meters. I save it with one button, and then I can recall it with another button very quickly, and this just allows me to be a bit more ready. As soon as I point the camera, the bird is already at least half sharp in the viewfinder, and this makes it much easier to track and also easier for the autofocus to track the bird throughout the image and keep it sharp. So as you can maybe see in the background, it got a bit sunnier, but luckily the sun is also in a lower position, meaning we get a bit nicer light. And I tried to do some backlit shots with really dark background, some low key. I tried to incorporate some bokeh in the background for some portraits, but I was not 100% convinced. So now I'm moving towards taking pictures of the birds in flight, of the egrets, herons, ibis, everything coming in a flight. So At the moment the light is still a bit harsh for my taste. It's like 1 hour 15 before sunset, but I will already position myself. So first I need to find a spot that is really suitable, meaning that the birds are either coming in, they always land on this tree there, that they either come in parallel to me or slightly towards me or completely towards me, but not away from me. This would not be good. Ideally I also focus on a branch that is, let's say, a bit more low hanging, that I can afterwards take pictures of the birds in front of the greenish background and not just the blue sky, which in my opinion just looks a bit boring. One nice alternative, as long as the light is still too harsh, is just to focus on some birds that will be in the shadow when they fly in. Here is one area in the, that is already in the shadow because another tree is creating a shadow. So there I can already take pictures, and the background is a bit brighter. And I think especially with bright birds like these white egrets, it can look really cool. For these situations, I generally recommend to use the manual exposure with manual ISO, because if you leave this on ISO on auto or any other parameter on auto, it means that the exposure and the brightness of the image will change depending on the background, and that's not really what we want. No matter whether the egret or ibis is flying in front of a dark background or a bright background, we always want to have the bird exposed exactly the same, making sure that no parts of the plumage are like burning out, are overexposing and clipping. Therefore, what I would recommend, manual exposure. I take a test shot. Let's say I will take pictures of the birds in the sun first. So there is one heron sitting there. I take one picture. I hit the playback and I look at the histogram. I look at the overexposure warning, and maybe even zoom in to have a better idea of the fine feather details. And then I'm set, and I only need, as long as it stays blue skies, I only need to adjust maybe every 15 minutes as the sun gets a bit lower and weaker to slightly increase the ISO over time. As you might already realize by my surroundings, it's already past sunset. I was able to take some nice flight shots. I also tried some backlit shots, some low key, and for this I like to use the optical viewfinder simulation on Canon cameras, and on Nikon cameras it's called Optimized for Ease of View, which basically just simulates optical viewfinder. So on digital viewfinder you don't have an exposure preview anymore, but the advantage is that it's much easier to track birds if you underexpose or if they are against dark background. And from my subjective feeling, the autofocus actually also profits from this setting. I explained this more in my ebook about the autofocus system of Nikon and Canon cameras. Also how you can put this on a button and what to watch out for, because it can happen that you forget to deactivate this setting, which can be quite problematic because afterwards your images will all be most likely too dark, but they could also be too bright. So be a bit careful with that one. Another goal that I had for today was to take a picture of a heron sitting on top of the tree in front of the full moon. It was not very easy, but I think I managed an okay-ish shot from an ibis sitting really on top of the tree, cleaning its feathers, and I tried to position the moon in the background. It's a very short window that you have, because before sunset the moon is not visible enough, and after sunset it soonish becomes too dark. And the sky just looks black, which doesn't look good. I prefer if you can still see a bit of blue in the sky. So that leaves me with a very short window. I'm happy with what I've got, and I think now it's time to head back into the camper. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.